Hey everybody, welcome to the podcast. I'm Mike Claiborne, and of course, Dr. Rick Lehman is with us as well. And we're brought to you by our good friends from Ermi. Free to move again, free to live again is what they're all about. And we'll talk about them in just a bit. But we have a special guest with the Olympics just around the corner. We thought it'd be a great idea to visit with one of the greatest. She appeared over a 12-year period in the Olympics and also the World Championship. She has 7 gold medals, 10 total. She also found herself in the most grueling event, that be at the heptathlon, 7-event participation in that situation, and she was outstanding in that. But more importantly, 25 years after her last event, she's still considered the greatest female track and field athlete that we'll ever have on this planet. It's always great to say hello to Jackie Joyner-Kersee. Jackie, thank you so much for being part of what we do.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Well, let's talk a little bit because, we see you around town a little bit, but I know people who, when I told we were going to have you on, they said, what's she doing these days? I said, a lot. So why don't you inform us what you're doing? What keeps you busy these days?
You know what keeps me busy? We have the Jackie Joyner-Kersee Center in East St. Louis, being over there every day, but then also doing a lot of virtual speaking engagement, also being an advisor, being a mentor, whatever I could do, I'm doing it.
You're having fun with it too, I gather.
Yes, got to have fun.
All right, that's great. Hey, before I turn it over to Rick, talk about your run and what it took when it came to your training regimen and being part of the Olympics. They say the athletes change, but the regiment is the same. So for you, going back to when you first decided that this is something I want to try and do, and you didn't go out and find something easy, you had to go find 7 events to participate in. So talk about a little bit, if you will, what it took for you to A, make that decision, and B, to make the commitment.
I started running at the age of 9 and through AAU different programs, working with Coach Nino Fenoy. And a lot of times, I just ran, jump, and didn't do a whole lot of throwing. But then Coach Fenoy would put us in different multi-events. And that's how I got involved with, at that time would have been the pentathlon. Then eventually it became the heptathlon. And so from there, I continued to just love what I was doing. But then as I went from being, a junior Olympic champion to a national champion, both on age group level and then going to the collegiate level and then trying to make Olympic team, you realize that, you love doing it. But then as an athlete, you always just think you're supposed to get out there and perform and not get injured, and that's where, great Dr. Lehman comes in, because our program was designed around preventative. Just making sure that we stay healthy, but staying in contact, not only with Bobby coaching us, but then also whenever Bobby, one of his athletes needed to be checked out, he would send them to Dr. Lehman.
So Jackie, I have a question. So it's such an event to make one Olympic team, and working with Bobby all these years, we're just so happy. Kenny Harris made one Olympic team. So many people made one Olympic team. Tell us how many Olympic teams you made, because I think people don't really understand the breadth of what you did and how tough it was to do what you did, which no one will ever do again. We understand that. But how many Olympic teams and how many world championships did you actually participate in?
I competed in 4 different Olympic Games and 4 different World Championship. It might have been more in the World Championship, because when I was competing, they were every 4 years. Now they like every other year, So for me, it was about staying healthy, prioritizing, working on different events, competing, in events that would prepare me to get ready for the bigger meets, but trying to make one Olympic team. I think sometimes we take it for granted. It's like, okay, if I'm out there, I'm gonna make a team. It wasn't like I even thought twice about it. And, and not knowing that how difficult that it really is, from now being on this side and understanding that things happen, and you go through ups and downs, you deal with injuries, but yet and still the focus and the priority, the sacrifice, all that is still there.
You know, you talk about sacrifice. What are some of the things you had to give up? You didn't have a normal life. You didn't have a chance to hang out with your friends and eat cheeseburgers and all that good stuff all the time. So, what were some of the things you had to sacrifice
You know,
to make you consistent?
you know what? Believe it or not, I did eat cheeseburgers. I did do all of that, but you did it in moderation. And the sacrifice when you're much younger is that for me, while I was going to practice, I wasn't going to a party or I wasn't going out. Uh, when I was in college, a lot of times I wasn't able to come home. Then I would have to stay in Los Angeles, or during Christmas break, I played basketball at UCLA. Those are the things that you feel that's a given that you had to really give up a lot. And then also the discipline, understanding the value of good nutrition and the difference it would make what you put into your body and why you wanted to perform well. So finding that balance was very crucial in trying to be successful in what we were trying to do.
And so let's talk about basketball for just a minute. You know, I kind of we were together along the way, and as many people don't know, Jay played at UCLA. Tell us about your WNBA career after that. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, it truly is amazing. Here's somebody who competed in 4 Olympic Games, played professional basketball, and right now, if she and I went out for a run, she'd kick my butt. So tell us a little bit about, your basketball career at UCLA and then after that, because it's really kind of amazing.
You know what, playing 4 years at UCLA really set the tone for me to become a better track and field athlete. And as I knew in my heart, I wanted to make the Olympic team in track and field. And so after I had finished college, went on, and because at that time, the opportunities that the young women have today weren't the same then. So if you wanted to play internationally or what they might call professionally, then you had to go overseas and be over there for an extended amount of time. And that just wasn't happening for me. So I knew I wanted to play. I knew I wanted to run track. I made the Olympic team in track. And then right after my 4th Olympic Games, competing in Atlanta, the opportunity to come play with the ABL. And so I went and I played, and it didn't go as well as I wanted it to go because I think that most people just saw me as a track and field athlete, but it was an opportunity to help grow the professional women's league. And then at the same time, the WNBA was coming around. And so it just gave the women who wanted to play, basketball another opportunity.
You talk about the basketball, and I'm wondering, with all the sports that you play, what was the one thing that you found that was consistent for you when it came to training? Because, we see athletes today that commit to just one sport and they don't use all the muscles and all the other elements of their body like they could in order to be a more effective athlete. So was there one common sport or one common activity you found that helped you in the other sports that you participated in?
You know what? I am a firm believer that I don't care what sport it is. The basic fundamentals is run, jump, and throw. Those elements are a part of everything that you do. I don't care if you're swimming, you got to have a stroke. You got to strengthen that shoulder. I don't care if you're jumping, you got to have strong ankles and strong your knees and everything. So I think just having that basic fundamentals, and then when you want to go specialize, then your body is, to me, is strong and able to do some of the other things you asking your body to do. But most of the time, I think people see younger athletes and they say, oh, you can do this, especially with girls, and they're not fully developed, that not strong hips or flexibility in your hips. I say I have problems with my hamstring. We found out that my hips were tight. So we worked on our flexibility. Early on in our career, we would work on in gym classes, stretching and working on your flexibility. Now they don't work on any of that. You watch a baseball player, they go up to bat, they haven't even stretched, and they're gonna go 90 miles per hour from home plate to the first plate, and then they wonder why they end up pulling muscles.
She's right, and I remember. I mean, literally day after day. And we had a lot of athletes here in St. Louis who were training, a ton of athletes, Gail Devers. There was a whole bunch of people who were here every day. and literally every day they were in physical therapy. And I think that's one of the reasons that Gail and Jackie and Joanne, all these people really had long careers, because they did all the little things that really made a difference. And Bobby was a stickler for that. The other question I have, and maybe this is the wrong question to ask, is tell us what and no one really knows, what are the Olympics going to be like with no fans?
Yeah.
I mean, I've been to obviously a lot of Olympics, fans, places packed, everyone's cheering for their country. Try to speculate, because again, it's new territory, but what's this Olympics going to be like?
You know what? I think I've thought about that, and it's one thing, the adrenaline, and I look at it as like a high level practice competition against the best athletes in the world. But the fans, a lot of times, is the neutralizer, but in this case, I think the athletes have trained and have prepared to peak at the highest level. And those who are focused, regardless, I think if there are fans there or not, they still going to perform at the highest level, because you're still going against lane 2, 3, and 4, or 6, 7, and 8. So those who can minimize, I guess I wouldn't call it a distraction, minimize the uneventful things or what's happening, and turn this into a positive, and look at, well, I still got to get out here and perform. But it's tough though, because sometimes you love having those fans there from all over the world cheering for you, but then you also have the ones that are hecklers too. You won't miss them.
Hey, Jackie, it's interesting as a competitor. How much did you hear the fans at that moment where maybe you're running down the track, or you're about to participate in the long jump, but at the moment of truth, how much did you actually hear them? Because a lot of athletes tune all that out because they're so locked in.
Right. The only time you will hear the fans is when you're walking from the call room, and you're actually walking into the stadium. And I remember this very clear, because I had a heckler. I didn't know. The guy just kept saying, Jackie Joyner-Kersee, Jackie Joyner-Kersee. And afterwards, I remember talking to Bobby. He said, that's a heckler. I said, oh, okay. I thought he was just cheering for me. But anyway, but I do think that once you walk into the stadium, that's when you would feel the fans, the crowd. But once you in there and you in your lane, or if I'm on the runway, I only hear one voice, and that's usually Bobby. I'm tuned into that one voice, and you really block out all the noise.
And what's it like? You win a gold medal, you win a bronze medal. I mean, walk the rest of us who have never experienced any of these things. Tell us, give us, what's it like? You compete, and walk us through that a little bit.
Yeah, now that's one of the things you would be remiss, is that once you perform well, and even if you're struggling, sometimes just the noise of the crowd could rise or could push someone to do something they didn't even think they could possibly do. And so once you have gone through that, you cross the finish line, everyone is applauding you, clapping and cheering for you, a sigh of relief for yourself. Now, as you get ready, you walk up and you go into the podium. In my case, everyone is rising, standing up, cheering for you. You standing on top of that podium, tears of joy rolling down your eyes. Now, this is going to be new for the athletes, because none of that is going to happen. They're even talking about, as they finish and they come gold, silver, and bronze, they're going to put their own medal on, and so the only people that would be clapping for him is the person you just defeated, So, but it's really, really, it's an experience of a lifetime to know that all your work you put in, and it's just not about you or about me. When I was standing, it was about the whole team, and I could just remember in '96 and how difficult it was as I was struggling through the long jump, and having Dr. Lehman there, and just knowing that only we knew what we had gone through, to be able to get that bronze medal, because that was really, really tough, and so, and then to walk out of that stadium and for everyone to just start applauding me, I was like, wow.
Other than the first gold medal that you won, was that last one, that bronze medal, because of all the things you went through? And we can talk about the hamstring, and a lot of people didn't think you were going to participate. I think a lot of people wrote you off, period.
Both of us.
But what was that like? I mean, obviously winning the first medal is something you'll never forget, but was that last one as important to you, considering everything you went through?
Oh yes, the last one, dealing with not being able to finish the heptathlon. And yes, people had written me off, and people were like, oh, she's probably not going to be able to do it. But what I had learned from 1984 and then to 1996, I really was able to reflect on knowing not to give up on myself. Doc was saying, I'm ready, I can do this. I kept trying to massage the leg. I just kept talking to myself, just feeding myself positive thoughts. And every jump, every time I came down that runway, with an attitude that I can do this, And so when it came down to my last attempt, I was in 6th place. And I said, I visualized myself coming down the runway. I said, I'm going to attack the board and I'm going to climb up in the air. I'm going to hold myself in the air for at least a second, and hopefully that would be a 7-meter plus jump. And if the leg goes, they'll send a gurney out there to pick me up and take me away. But I wasn't going to, in that mindset, I was going for the win. And I think that's how I came away with the bronze.
It was amazing. It was truly, it was 5 days working truly 24/7. And, you couldn't say enough about Jackie, because again, I think a lot of people would have said, let's just go home, and she wasn't having it. And, you got to hand it to her, man. That's as brave a thing as I've seen. So, and I've been through a lot of stuff. So, no, it was amazing. And I think the subsequent Olympics, the Olympic Games are so special because you have all these different people from all these different countries and coaches and doctors, and everybody kind of comes together. It's like no other event. It's not like a World Series or a Super Bowl. And there's so much national pride. But you have so much pride in the athletes themselves, because what they put through. Watching on TV, you see somebody win the 100-meter dash, and well, that's great, but you don't know what the last 3 years have been. And the last 3 years, as Jackie will tell you, leads up to that, and that's day in and day out of hard work.
Yes.
I'm glad you brought that up, Rick, because it's not like a baseball season or basketball season. You have 3+ years to prepare for one event or one time in a week's period. So for you, Jackie, what was the biggest challenge in dealing with that? Because it's not just physical. Right. I got to think it's mental as well, just having your mind mentally conditioned to say, I've got one kick at the can here, and I have to make sure I have all my ducks in a row and all the training that goes into that. How difficult is that?
You know what? It's not something that's an athlete you think about. Mm-hmm. It's a part of your team, a part of your preparation. And that, say the Olympic trials are set on this date, and everything that Bobby, even talking with Dr. Lehman and we work our way back. So we know that we want to peak at this time. And so as an athlete, all you doing is doing all the hard work in practice, preparing yourself. And when the time comes, you got to execute. All those other things you can't be thinking about, because you can get, we always say paralysis by analysis, because you're analyzing everything and you're trying to, no, just do what you've been prepared to do. And when that day comes, you make sure that you're ready, and our Olympic trials are one of the most difficult trials to make, because you got to be in the top 3. You can't be injured, can't be sick, you got to be ready.
So can't test positive.
Yeah,
can't smoke anything.
Exactly.
Okay.
Right, exactly.
Hey, the other thing when it comes to the Olympics, and you've participated in a lot of them, the competitors that you faced, there are people that we only hear about every 4 years, but you knew these people and they were gunning for you. Who were some of the other great athletes that you had a chance to compete against, or people that you saw that you really had come to appreciate after competing with them?
Oh, Heike Drexler, from Germany was always one. I knew whenever I stepped on the runway, whenever we were going to go up against each other, I needed to be ready because I knew that she was going to give me her all, and I'm going to give her my all, and Sabrina Braun, in the heptathlon, and just knowing that they have the capability of doing what I'm capable of doing. But it was always make sure that I'm ready, not to show fear, show respect.
Yeah.
But never did I have fear of them. I always felt that when they would try to play games in different meets, oh, you know how they say, well, I'm going to put this person in front of her to break her down. I was like, I didn't care if you put me first or last, in the middle, I'm going to be ready. And those are the mental games that people try to play with you that you don't even know about when they in those rooms selecting what position you're going to go in or what lane you in, try to get into your head.
Yeah, that's something that we don't hear a lot about, how they set the parameters. And because obviously there are people who are rooting against you and they want to put you in a situation like that. How did you deal with that? I mean, you just kept it moving? Because if you put too much time into something like that you can't control, obviously it's a great distraction.
Right. I looked at a negative as a positive. So I thought, what's the worst thing they could do and prepare myself. And the worst thing they could have done was put me in lane 1 in Russia in the 100-meter hurdles. And no one runs in lane 1, but they put me in lane 1, so it's those kind of things they would do to try to mess with you. And I'm a left leg lead. And then they got this rail. So if I do anything off balance, then there's more than likely no one runs in lane 1.
Yeah.
Especially when I had the top mark,
Yeah. They gave you no respect.
Right.
No, that's right. And there were some there were some amazing athletes that Jackie probably knew well. And we got to deal with Gail being one of them, Florence being one of them, Carl Lewis, who was just crazy. And you just gain so much respect. I mean, you watch Jackie and I just remember talking to Bobby and I thought, we just go there, we win all the events, we take all the medals home, and this is how you do it. And obviously 25, 35 years later, I realized, as Jackie said, it's no given to make the team. Great athletes don't make the team. They don't have their big day. And there's only 3 that are going to go, and they don't care what you did last week. It doesn't make any difference how last year or yesterday was. You got to show up, just as Jay said, on that day. And there were athletes that you would watch them and you would just, watching Carl and Ben Johnson and some of these people and all the things that have happened, Marion, there's just so many things that happen in Olympic Games. And it's like every day is like a month.
Jackie, and Rick touches on something. We've seen some great athletes that have had problems in one manner or another. What advice do you give athletes today? Because as you still pay attention to track and field, and I'm sure you see young athletes that you think may have a chance, but what do you give them with respect to advice? Because there's a lot of white noise going on in the world today. So what do you suggest?
You know what? I suggest that it's one thing to stay true to who you are, but it's also making sure that the company that you keep, and also telling young athletes to be patient, and to know that the opportunities that are here for you today is because of the people who came after you or before you, So I will always play homage to a Wilma Rudolph or Wyoming Tyus, because the opportunities that I'm getting or when I was competing was because of some of the things that they weren't able to receive. But you find in a generation that sometimes we don't respect history, we just don't. And if we can embrace that and then just be great listeners and listen to what people are trying to share with you, not trying to tell you how to do your business, but just trying to share different stories or different insights so you don't fall into some of the same pitfalls that have taken away some of our greatest athletes because, they just didn't listen.
Hey, you mentioned the one competitor you faced, but let me ask you, who's the best athlete you've ever seen that wasn't named Jackie Joyner?
Oh wow. I would have to say Heike Drexler was really, I mean, she was a tremendous talent. And I say that because she loved long jumping like I love long jumping. But her country wanted her to be the sprinter, wanted her to be the multi-eventer, and she had that kind of ability. You know, I never forget in '88, she did not want to do the 200 or the 100, but they put her in the 100 and the 200, and then she had to go up against me in the long jump. And we had those conversations, but she wasn't able to say, "Oh, I can't do that," and
Right.
but I was glad they had it in the 100 and the 200, because I was doing the heptathlon, and then we gonna go long jump and wear her legs out like I'm wearing my legs.
I hear you. So misery has company. Hey,
Right.
what was your favorite event, and what was the one event you dreaded practicing?
Oh, the long jump was my favorite event. I dreaded practicing the high jump because it was so technical. 800, I didn't like running it, but I don't mind going out and doing a road run. But when it came down to the high jump, just learning how to lay out, learning, the timing of it. And Bobby and I, we would go toe to toe, because I didn't give him credit, but he knew best though, because that event, if I wasn't on top of my game, if I jump 5'10" and they jump in 6'1", 6'2", I'm down 200-300 points. And that's why he would always say, we're going to work on that. I want to work on the long jump. You don't need to work on the long jump. You need to work on the high jump.
I bet you all had some interesting car rides home from the track.
Oh, yes. I remember one time we were in California on the 405, because Bobby can go nonstop. And I was like, oh, I wish I would roll down the window. So it's like, get out. Oh, my gosh. Because he was smothering me, da 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 da, and I just couldn't get out the car.
Rick,
Doc, no,
but I will say one thing in Bobby's credit: it wasn't just Jay. He could. I mean, I heard him give it to Grand Fuhrer one night, and I just was like, let me step back. So it was a long line.
Yes.
Hey, before we wrap up, I want to ask you about rehab and recovery. We don't see athletes, maybe we see the great ones, understand when they are injured how important rehab and the recovery process is, because it's almost as you have to be as dedicated to that as you do your training regimen. But what advice do you give young people today who find themselves getting injured and are not sure what the next step should be?
I would say that what we did, with Dr. Them, we worked from preventative. Preventative was a part of our training. As much as we were running on the track, we were also going in, getting physical therapy work, doing all these little things that you don't think you have time for. You need to be ahead of the game. You don't go in and do the rehab when you injured. We would go in and try to do it before that injury occurred. So when Bobby would send his athletes from all over, he sent them right here to Dr. Lehman, and Dr. Lehman would tell him they need to do X, Y, Z, and Bobby going to do exactly what Dr. Lehman told us to do, and sometimes some of the people in physical therapy, they confuse themselves with being the coach, and and that's why Bobby trusts Doc, because he's going to follow the routine. And so,
hey, I want to ask both of you guys a question here. It's been 25 years, Jackie, since you were on the track. And Rick, you've been working on athletes for 35 years. What's the biggest change with regard to preparation and preventive medicine? And Jackie, for you, you were a track and field athlete. So it wasn't like they had these newfangled baseball bats or the new equipment. But is there anything you see athletes do today or use today that you say to yourself, I wish I would have had that to participate in?
So I would say that, for us, I see the bands, TheraBands and all that. We use surgical tubing. We would go to the hardware and we would make our surgical tubing. We would do different things. And I say that the biggest difference is that, one, you have to believe in Dr. Lehman. And when Dr. Lehman prescribed what we should do and what we should do with the physical therapist, that's what we do. we do not go to YouTube and try to figure it out ourselves. So that, the athletes, they do that.
So, what's interesting, Mike, if you look at world records get broken, Sydney just broke a world's record. But if you look at Jackie's world's records and you look at Florence's world's records and Michael Johnson's, even though you look at athletes today, especially baseball players, football players, are bigger, stronger, they're training, they're supplementing, they're doing some things, you still have to wonder to yourself, hey, when did Florence break the record in 200? When did Jackie compete? When did Michael Johnson compete? And those records still stand. So as much as things have changed, and they have changed, especially in, football players are bigger, linemen are faster, training's a little bit different. But you still have to wonder, how are these records, which may never get broken, to be honest. I don't know if Jackie's records will ever get broken. You have to say maybe something hasn't changed, and maybe the conditioning we were doing back then, all paid off, and maybe Bobby Kersee truly is the greatest track coach ever lived. And based on that, I think you look at dingers, home runs, and you look at baseball. Baseball training has changed. We've gone to strength. Golf has changed. You look at DeChambeau, and some of these guys are just monsters. But in track and field, you got to run from point A to point B as fast as you can, or jump as high as you can. And I'm not sure all that has changed. Techniques have gotten better. Training's gotten a little bit better. You still have to wonder why those records are going to stand and may stand forever.
And you know what, to add on to that, I guess the only thing that's changed in track and field might be the surfaces, because I think we all remember the cinder tracks, and then we see the tracks that they run on today. And I think that might be the only thing that's actually changed, because as you mentioned, some of the world records, and I always think about the long jump, and I used to think nobody's ever going to break that when Bob Beamon did it. Yeah. And then here comes Mike Conley Sr., and I don't think anybody will break his record. I mean, it's one of those things where I think surface might be the only thing that's changed, because the athletes don't.
And I think also, too, I look throughout my career, and when I look at, you see athletes that are good and those who want to be great, I look for the consistency. And that's what I wanted, consistency, and I think that separates, so once someone said that you're a great athlete, then you start believing that, then you change your training. Now, all of a sudden, you had a coach, you're going to get rid of that coach. Now your uncle or your brother is your coach now. A lot of things that go into an athlete becoming one of the best. The consistency not only happens with what they're doing on the track, their physical therapy, their orthopedic that they're seeing, all those things have to stay consistent. Bet you when you look at what's happening outside of that, they change their coach, their personal life then change, they're inconsistent. Then it starts to overflow into an athlete continue to perform at a high level.
Well, folks, we're out of time. We could keep this going, but I know everybody's got something to do, and we've had so much fun, Jackie, talking to you for sure. And Doc, as always, it's great to visit with you. All right, Jackie, before we get out of here, the one event that would save Rick Lehman's life that you think you could participate in just one time just to save his life? or should we start making arrangements?
I think, what do you think, Doc?
Get him a nice suit. Should we get the suit already fitted for him? Because it sounds like he might not be part of this if we're leaving it up to you, Jackie.
No, Doc can do anything he put his mind to, and hey, whatever event.
No, you got to save his life.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I would say, what event would it be? The long jump.
It'd be the long jump.
Okay, you'd have one good long jump in him just to save his life.
Because he saved me.
Okay. So I'm going to tell you one quick story, and this is a great story. So I can't remember where it was, but we're all sitting around the tent, and Jackie says, hey, let's go warm up. Okay, so we're going to jog around the track, 400-meter track. And I was, I couldn't have been more than 30, whatever. So Jay goes and starts, and she's barely talking. She's talking, and I'm running at full speed, I'm like dying. I can't breathe. I'm looking for the stretcher. And I just thought to myself, you know what? I'm glad I'm the doctor, and I'm not that. And I'll never forget that as long as I live.
Was that in Sacramento?
Yeah, I think it was in Sac.
That's when she wanted to do a full lap. You stopped at 200, huh? You stopped at the
200. I was at 40 meters, so I wanted to kill myself.
Hey, well, folks, first of all, we want to thank you guys, Jackie and Rick, for being part of what we do. We want to thank our friends from Ermi. Don't forget, free to move again, free to live again is what they're all about. Check them out at their website, especially if you're going to go through some really tough rehab. These are the people who provide the great equipment that you see in all the great rehab centers around the world. Ermi is where you're going to find your best way to get back on track and on the track. So for Dr. Rick Lehman and the Hall of Famer, Jackie Joyner-Kersee, 25 years and they still recognize you. She's still the greatest ever. Thank you, Jackie. Again, we want to thank everybody for tuning in. This has been another visit with Dr. Rick Lehman on ClaibsOnline.com.